It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does. Thank you, Chad Erickson. Thanks to all of you for being with us on this Wednesday edition of the show. Lots of playoff talk. We'll get to the NHL coming up in 20 minutes. Wild night on the ice. Bill Belichick and his bizarre relationship with a 20-something-year-old influencer. And we'll put that under the microscope for a second. Why not? It's a Wednesday. Also, we'll get into some baseball. The Yankees doing something that's never been done before. So we'll get to that. Also, an interesting decision by the Astros when it comes to Jose Altuve at the top of the batting order. Punishment coming down for Jeff Ulbrich, all of that and more. But we start things out in the NBA, and there he is, the man, the myth, the legend. Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com hangs out with us every Wednesday on the show, and we're running around the NBA with him. All right, Kurt, let's start with the Bucks and Pacers because everybody wants to talk about what took place between those two teams on Tuesday night. And look, I'm curious to get your take on a number of things, starting with the way they blew that game late with Gary Trent basically playing a marvelous game. And then the most simple pass goes right through. It was like Bill Buckner goes right through his hands and out of bounds and ultimately winds up costing the Pacers and the Bucks in this game. And by the way, can we also say, as much as I love Giannis Antetokounmpo, you can't let Tyrese Halliburton go right around you and score that easy.
Halliburton's an elite all-NBA player. Look, he was an Olympian. He's not going to be easy to stop, but there wasn't enough resistance on a bunch of their shots. And the Nembhard's three, it was 33 feet or whatever the measurement ended up being. I think it was 33. You got to put a hand up. At this point, just contest everything a little bit. And they were really a disaster down the stretch. And by the way, and I hate to do this because Gary Trent, like you said, 8 threes, great game. He's part of the reason they're in that at the end.
Yep.
He had 2 horrible turnovers. He made a pass to play before, right to Nembhard. Just a couple of turnovers that changed the game.
So the Pacers win the series. Look, they were going to win this series, whether it was in 5, whether it was in 6, whether it was that. They were going to win this series. They were certainly the better team, and Damian Lillard being hurt certainly was the death knell for the Bucks. Then you get this situation after the game where John Halliburton, the son of Tyrese Halliburton, goes on the court with a towel that is adorned, with the face of Tyrese. And he's flashing it in the face of Giannis Antetokounmpo and screaming expletives at him. And Giannis is just standing there staring at him like, what is going on? Like, what is happening in front of me? He says he didn't initially know it was Tyrese Halliburton's dad. They wind up going head-to-head, nose-to-nose. Giannis showed way more restraint than I ever could have. Yes. Tyrese said all the right things after the game in condemning his dad's behavior, which certainly put him in an awkward spot. His father did. The NBA's got to do something about this. We've seen it with John Morant's dad, too. That whole incident last year with him and Shannon Sharp that took place. Sometimes these parents of these players soaking up the spotlight that their kids should be soaking up, get into these situations. The league's going to have to do something about this.
The leagues and the teams, Giannis talked about it, and it's not every parent. There's a lot of parents at games. There is a family section for the teams at games that is, cheering, but I don't want to say reserved, but not kind of in your face. And then there are the parents who want to sit courtside, who want to be kind of involved in that way and get fired up for, hey, and look, I've been fired up for my kids' high school soccer games. I'm like, you get emotional about stuff, but there's a line. And John Halliburton, to his credit, by the way, did apologize later. He did come out and say, I crossed the line.
He has to.
But the league, I think there is something to saying that, I don't know what you tell teams. Like, hey, man, nobody's parents can sit courtside seems like a kind of strange edict. But something's got to happen to keep that distance. And generally, by the way, pro teams are pretty good about, taking annoying fathers and keeping them at arm's length. They're generally pretty good about that. But it's not always easy, and it's especially not easy when it's the parent or father of the star player who already gets all sorts of privileges and hey, your dad can sit wherever they want.
Let's move away from that for a second because I could say a lot more about it, and most of it would just get me in trouble. So let me move away from that for a second and talk about what happens now when it comes to the Bucks. Yeah. I mean, I know the Pacers moving on to the next round and they'll get Cleveland and that'll be a great series is a nice story. But what happens to the Bucks now? You have Lillard who's going to be on the shelf for a while. You know, Doc says, Lillard doesn't want to go out this way. Sometimes you don't have a choice in how you go out. Giannis, the idea of whether he gets moved. And I'll also throw this in. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to pile on Doc Rivers, and I've never been the biggest Doc Rivers guy because everybody told me how great Doc Rivers was. Great. He won a championship with 3 Hall of Famers. I mean, he won a championship with 3 Hall of Famers, and he's failed everywhere else he's gone. There's no escaping that truth. He failed before he got to Boston, and he failed after he left Boston, and he won his championship with three Hall of Famers. Congratulations. This is not Greg Popovich. This isn't even Rick Carlisle to me. I'm sorry. I am not in the camp of Doc Rivers as this grand poobah of NBA coaches or the pantheon of head coaches. Stan Van Gundy disagrees with me on this, and we've texted about it before. That said, what do you think happens here with this Bucks organization going forward? It's the big question mark of this offseason.
It's a weird situation in this sense. Financially, the Bucks don't want to trade Giannis. He is the centerpiece of the league, or the franchise, right? In terms of selling sponsorships, selling tickets, selling fan interaction. You look over it now. It was a different situation, but you look at Dallas and you're like, man, once you pull the plug on your star, it's a weird thing. Basketball wise, just pure basketball terms, the Bucks have to consider it. Because they are what they are right now. This is what they're going to be for a few years. They don't have their own draft pick until 2031. They don't have any cap space next year at all. In fact, they're already over the second apron. They're in a tough spot. This is kind of who they are, and it's not good enough. And if they don't want to be stuck here, they've got to tear it down. Trading Giannis is how you do that. The big question is this. Is Giannis ready for that? Is Giannis Antetokounmpo ready to say, hey, I'm ready to go. I want to go somewhere I can contend? Because 29 teams will kick the tires, but good teams. Houston has the assets to make this. San Antonio has the assets to make this interesting. If you want to go to New York and try to save Brooklyn, I'm not sure that's a great basketball fit, but they're going to certainly be involved. The Knicks, everybody would at least make a call. He's got to decide that for himself, though. But I think he does. I think this summer, look, the league. I'll tell you this. Just talking to sources, everybody in the league expects it. Everybody expects he is the guy on the market.
We'll have more with Kurt on the other side. He's not going anywhere. Coming back. We're continuing the conversation on the NBA. Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com hangs out with us on Wednesdays. Just to wrap up the point on Giannis. You get to bet with Jason Page's money. Are you betting that Giannis is there next season when the season starts or not?
No, I'd say 60-40 he's gone. 2/3. It's not... He's torn between wanting to be loyal for his whole career to one city and that Kobe kind of mentality of not leaving. Although, not like Kobe didn't ask for a trade.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, like I said, that team is stuck. So if what matters most to him is legacy and rings, like he has said, he's not getting another ring in Milwaukee with this group, and he's going to have to get it somewhere else.
And I'll bring up the Golden State Warriors as the prime example. You keep trying to extend that window, and all you're doing is extending the length of time it's going to take to rebuild and get back to a point of prominence. And the Warriors are going to find this out eventually. As much as people are loving, the Jimmy Butler thing and all that, the Warriors aren't beating the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're not. They're not good enough to get over that hump. They've done what they can. They're still relevant. They're still going to be able to sell tickets, which I'm sure has a lot to do with it for that franchise and Joe Lacob and filling up Chase Center. You build a brand new arena, then you're going to tear the franchise apart. That's hard to do. It's a hard sell to the fan base. But if you're Milwaukee and you don't do this now, and again, it's weird for them because let's be honest, that arena is the arena that Giannis built. Yep. I mean, it's simple as that, but you have to be able to make difficult decisions as ownership and management and figure out we're just not good enough to win in this landscape right now. and they can get a haul for Giannis right now, so you go and do it. I agree with you.
Yeah, no, you get a haul that, you don't control your own draft picks. You get so many young players and picks back that it resets. You don't really rebuild.
Yeah.
You're retooling almost. You're going to reschool this thing around whoever you get.
Yeah, and in the East, you could probably still make the playoffs if you do it right in terms of whatever you get for him. In exchange, you could still be competitive in the East. For crying out loud, look at the teams that made the play-in this year. Yeah. Move to the Knicks and the Pistons, because, God, this was hard to watch. You play 46 minutes of hard-nosed basketball. The game's close. And then you can't get Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson back out on the court because nobody can call a timeout. The Knicks had like 2 or 3 possessions with both of them standing at the scorer's table watching what's going on, and nobody can call timeout and get them back in the game. And the Pistons kind of run away with it in those final couple of minutes. Knicks able to, sort of make it a little close late, but that's a great win for Detroit, who could just as easily be up 3-2 or have even won this series. If you look at games 1 and 4 and the way they played out, Kurt, Detroit's got to be kicking themselves right now.
They and the Clippers are looking back at a couple of games, 1 and 4, specifically in both series, and said, man, coulda, woulda, shoulda. We should be up in this series, and we are not. And in the case of the Knicks, it's maybe, look, they're probably going to still advance, but
yes,
they've got hard questions coming this summer too. When they get, you look at them and you watch Boston right now and you're like, man, that's not going to be pretty in the next round. And then they've got to face questions about, has Thibodeau taken this team as far as he can take it? Is it time? You've got Brunson, you've got Towns, you are committed to this iteration of the Knicks. Do you need another voice in the room, or do you need to get, and what players do you need to go get to try to make this thing work? And Kevin, do you go try to go get Durant? What do you do? You've got to do something, because this is as good as it gets. And the only question I've got is, can Leon Rose fire Tom Thibodeau? Would he? Like, that is he and Wes, and that's brotherhood right there. They're all really tight. I don't know.
Here's the thing. I can see a situation where it's not ugly and acrimonious and it winds up being a mutual parting of the ways. Because if you look at this NBA offseason, there's enough coaching vacancies and openings. Tom Thibodeau could probably get a job next year if he wants to. He could probably get a job somewhere in the league next year if he wants to. The question is, like you said, are the Knicks going to be willing to make that bold a move? And frankly, there's enough guys out there that I think are going to be of interest to the Knicks. If this ended in the opening round, I could definitely see Tibbs going. If they get bounced in 5 by the Celtics, which is certainly a possibility, hell, I could see him getting swept by the Celtics given the way those regular season matchups went. I would not be shocked at all if Tibbs was gone. And I had said that before the postseason started, and I still believe it now.
You've got Mike Malone. If you're looking for a short-term boost, because Mike Malone's another coach with kind of an expiration date, to use the term, like, he's not somebody who's necessarily going to be the long-term 15-year guy. Yeah. He's not Eric Spoelstra. But if you're trying to juice a team right now and you're looking for a coach who's won a ring and has a personality, but also can just flat-out coach, Mike Malone comes in, and that's an interesting fit.
I'll still say Dan Hurley. I'm telling you. That conversation's going to happen. There will be a conversation with Dan Hurley if Tibbs gets let go. I'm just saying. I would love to see what he could do as an offensive mastermind with that group. And maybe play more than 7 guys every night.
And, exactly. Play more than 7 guys. And by the way, with this group, if you're going to have Towns and Brunson, you're leaning into your offense. This is not going to be a Thibodeau defense team. And you were, with all due respect to OG and Bridges and everybody else, man, you're leaning into your offense with this group.
Yep, you absolutely are. In the final minute and a half I have here, Clippers and Nuggets. Look, I thought this would be the banger of bangers of all the first round series, and it has been really good. But last night, credit to the Nuggets, man. I mean, they showed up. Christian Braun played really well in that game for them. And now the Clippers have their backs up against the wall after it looked for a time in this series like the Clippers were the team that was going to come out of this series.
The Clippers were the best team for the first 3 games, clearly. And look, I was at the game 3 and I'm like, came out of that like this thing, the Clippers are going to win this.
Yes.
But then, and the problem is now for the Clippers, Denver's been the better team for 7 of the last 8 quarters. You take fourth quarter of game 4 and another one the Clippers let slip away, but Denver's been the better team. They got the Jamal Murray game. Like, you knew there was going to be one or two. That was 2023 championship Jamal Murray. That version of the Nuggets from last night can beat any team right now. Like, they are that good. I just don't. They're not as consistent. They're not the 20. That guy showed up every night in 2023. He's not showed up every night now. The Clippers are in trouble. I still think this thing goes 7, but I'm not sure the Clippers can beat them twice.
I think it goes 7 as well. By the way, congratulations to Stephon Castle, the former UConn Husky, wins Rookie of the Year. That makes me happy because I got a bunch of his rookie cards, which means they go up in value. And by the way, it also just goes to show you the value of being drafted or coming out in the right year, because last year, he's not even sniffing this award. And this year, in kind of a weak rookie class, he winds up winning it.
He wins it. And by the way, don't be shocked if you hear his name in trades this summer, because Spurs are looking to make a move, and that's a quality asset you can move.
We're coming back. Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of the show. All right, let's move away from basketball. Let's talk some hockey, some pucks. Last night was just amazing. The NHL postseason is just straight up fire. Sammy Arnell is here, hanging out with us on the show as always as well. I watched a lot of hockey last night. In between the basketball, kind of going in and out. What? Why do I get that face? Now you're like Dennis Bernstein, who rolls his eyes at me.
In between the basketball, Jason,
yes.
Last night was an exemplary moment in the argument that the Stanley Cup Playoffs walk all over the NBA playoffs 6 ways to Sunday. Mm-hmm. We had a great night of basketball last night, and the best sports night, hands down, came on ice in the NHL. So I, as many people should have been, was logged into my, say it with me, YouTube TV.
Oh, Jesus.
I had the multi-view up, and what did I have rocking in the multi-view, Jason Page? I had Wild Golden Knights. I had double overtime for the Devils and Hurricanes. And then in the little bottom corner, we just tucked in the Pacers and the Bucks.
They're not sponsoring us, by the way. Joanna, get on that. YouTube TV. So, because Sam apparently loves it. So, start with the Oilers. And, you know what, seeing that it's on the screen. Devils and Hurricanes. You get the Devils jumping out to a big lead in that game. Hurricanes come from behind, wind up winning it in overtime. And that series is a wrap, 5-4 the final. And, you know, look, it's not a surprise. We thought the Hurricanes would win that series, but still a very entertaining series. All right, move away from that. Oilers and Kings. Look, and we had Dennis on the show talking about this yesterday, and we all know right now that Kings coach Jim Hiller is certainly under some fire. Now, an addendum to what we had yesterday on the show, because at the morning skate yesterday, after we had already done our conversation with Dennis Bernstein, Jim Hiller went to Dennis Bernstein. They talked things out, and Jim Hiller basically said, hey, let's start over. You know, I don't want to say it was an apology or a mea culpa or anything like that, but following that exchange they had in the press conference after Game 4, they made nice. Still, it gives you an insight into sort of the panic going on in a coach's mind when they have that sort of reaction to a fairly benign question of how do you keep avoiding these collapses late in games? And then in Game 5, they have another collapse. And they can't score. And if not for Darcy Kemper, by the way, that game would have been far worse than the 3-1 final that it was with the late empty netter, Sam.
Yeah, and just real quick, back to that Devils Hurricane series. Speaking of goalies standing on their heads, that's the only reason it lasted into double overtime for the Devils, because their goalie was doing absolute wonder work yesterday in the first overtime and into the second overtime. All right, Oilers Kings. So yeah, here's my thing, right? It's great. It's great that Hiller went to our friend Denny and wanted to make up with him. Here's the thing. Dennis was right again. They did the exact same thing. So as much as we can make nice and play patty cake with the media, Jim Hiller, the fact of the matter is your job's going to be in jeopardy if you don't learn from what's going on out there on the ice. And quite frankly, your guys did it again last night. I think the goal that gave the Oilers the 2-1 lead at the time was like 3 minutes to go in the third period. And everyone was talking about overtime. It was a stale game. And then all of a sudden, tic-tac-toe, and the Oilers are on the board. And then they net the empty netter to give themselves the win and lead the series. I cannot comprehend on the Los Angeles Kings side how you can continue to watch the same thing happen over and over again. It's Groundhog Day in LA.
I'll be Freddie fact checker for 1 second. It was a few minutes into the third period, not with a few minutes left in the third period. But the fact remains, the Oilers are not a great defensive team. And the Kings have not been able to find ways to score when it counts or when it matters. And in this game, they had to try and come from behind. Obviously, they couldn't do it. I think the Oilers closed that thing out in 6. I think the Kings are how about this? Skating on thin ice. You like that? You like that? All right, let's shift gears to the Golden Knights and the Wild, Sam. And look, credit to Vegas. They find a way to get the win at home in double overtime. They beat the Wild 3-2, but this is a game that could have easily gone the other way. You get the Wild scoring a goal, I think in the third period, would have made it 3-2. They go back and review it. Turns out the player for the Wild was offsides, but the way the whole thing happened was kind of weird.
This was the one that happened with a couple of minutes left in regulation. I definitely had this no goal confused with the Oilers Kings goal. That said, I do think that there's something to be said about NHL replay, which not by far, but in my mind is like the most successful of all of the replays. There was something that happened in this game that kind of made me rethink, or at least think that the NHL may need to tweak one little part of it. And it was with this goal. Obviously, the first replay of this goal, the first referee-initiated replay, comes from Toronto. They're reviewing whether or not the puck was kicked into the net by the Wild offenseman. They wanted to see. They ultimately determined that it wasn't, and that it was a good goal. However, during the time of that review, the Vegas Golden Knights bench and video room had enough time to look through every camera angle and find out that a minute beforehand, the Wild player entered the offensive zone offside. So then they had the chance to call their timeout, make their coach's challenge that the goal was offside, ultimately held up, goals taken off the board, Golden Knights go on to win. I think that there's just got to be a little bit of innovation in that, because we can't give teams an extra minute and a half to look over a bazillion different angles of something to then be able to decide to challenge. That was my take.
The big thing that I've come away with just listening to you talk and thinking out loud to myself is, I think we have to come to the conclusion that no replay system is going to be perfect. You're not going to be able to catch everything. That there's just no way to do it. Because we've had replay in all these sports for a number of years, and they still can't get the calls 100% right 100% of the time. We think they should, but it feels like there's something that slips through the cracks on all of these things, and we just got to kind of have to make our peace with it. Real quick, Senators and Maple Leafs are going to a Game 6. After Ottawa wins in Toronto, the Battle of Ontario continues. Best thing we could hope for, Game 7 back in Toronto in that series. We got to go. We're coming back. Got some baseball to get to. A couple of odd stories from yesterday. We'll get to it next. Coming up in 10 minutes, did you see the CBS Sunday morning interview with Bill Belichick? Everybody's talking about it. My take might actually surprise you. Sam Yarnell.
Me too.
The Yankees did something crazy again. We'll get to that coming up in just a moment. But first, a thought about Jose Altuve. and the Astros. Why am I bringing up Jose Altuve and the Astros? They're sort of meddling, sort of mid this year. And I saw the story about Altuve asking to be taken out of the leadoff spot. And I said, well, why do you want? It got me to click. They got what they wanted. And it turns out Altuve, who, by the way, has it is confirmed, has the worst arm of any left fielder in like the history of Major League Baseball. I think, and that's a long time. They've been playing the game a long time, and they've been able to go back and figure out that he's got like the worst arm ever, which we kind of knew. I think Sam might have even pointed out that Altuve in left field would be a bit of a disaster, but that's where he is, and that's that. So he says, I want to bat second and not lead off. And the reason, he tells his manager, is because it takes me so long to get in from left field that I don't have time to prepare for my first bat. He's like, I need an extra 10 seconds. Can you move me to the number 2 spot? And it actually worked. He played well last night. He had a couple of hits. Jeremy Pena was in. Now, look, it's one night. It's anecdotal. I mean, it's not a huge enough sample size. But Jeremy Pena actually had a really good night in the leadoff spot. And Altuve actually, did his thing. But the excuse of, I can't get in from left field fast enough. I mean, that's one of the, I've heard a lot of weird things, and I know baseball players are superstitious and they've got their routines, and, hitting is about as much a mental thing as it is a physical thing. This one was weird for me, Sam.
Yeah, no. Do I buy for 1 millisecond that is the actual reason why, or the actual conversation that happened in the clubhouse? Not a chance. And here's why. Since 2020, we've had a fixed amount of time between innings. That time has not changed. It's 2 minutes and 25 seconds from the last out being called to the first pitch of the next inning. And the last 20 seconds of that are the pitch clock for the first pitch for the starting pitcher, or whoever it may be, relief pitcher, whoever's pitching. There is no actual chance that a professional athlete, we're not talking about a designated hitter here. We're not talking about Yordan Alvarez, who, by the way, played left field at times and still made it into the dugout in time to hit. There is no way a professional athlete has a real problem running a matter of 150 feet and then putting on a batting helmet. And even if you are the most extravagant athlete or extravagant hitter in the major leagues, you're putting on a batting helmet, your batting gloves, an elbow pad, a shin pad, and maybe if you're really extra, one of those little hand guards. You're talking about a max of 30 seconds. So now we're 45 seconds in to 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Jose Altuve, if you are at a spot in your career where in 1 minute and 40 seconds, without having to do anything else to get ready, you cannot take yourself into the on-deck circle, move yourself to the batter's box, and be ready to face Major League pitching, you're not at a point in your career where you should be on a Major League roster. I'm sorry, but that's just the fact of the matter. If this is really the case, which again, I do not buy that it is, when you're talking about an Astros team that has been meddling all season. However, if that is really the case and he is having conditioning issues running in from left field to the dugout in a matter and getting ready to hit in a matter of 2 minutes and 25 seconds, retire.
He's hitting 282, by the way. And I want to make sure, for the sake of being factual, this was for the Monday night game. They made the switch to him in the 2-hole, and he had the good game. Last night he was an 0-for. But he is hitting like 280 on the year. So
he's having a good season at the plate.
He's having a decent,
all of his struggles
season.
Are in the field.
Yeah,
man.
well, because they forced him into left field, and it is what it is. So with that being said, let me move to the Yankees, because anytime we can find an excuse to talk about the Yankees, it's a good day. After losing Game 1 to the Orioles on Monday night, the Yankees did something on Tuesday night that's never been done before. For the second time this year, they went back to back to back to start the game. I mean, again, you can watch baseball for a zillion years, and the old saying is, you'll always see something new. Case in point, the Yankees doing this for a second time. And by the way, we're not even like 30 games into the season, and they've done this for a second time. It's kind of insane.
Right. That to me is the most impressive part, is that the Yankees just did something that no team has ever done in a single season, and they did it on April 29th. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Trent Grisham, by the way, is
so bad.
I know they are, but can I just say real quick, Trent Grisham's having an insane season as a part-time player for them, which is, and look, it's working. I still don't know what they're going to do when Stanton comes back and they have all these outfielders. Usually these things work themselves out. Okay, go ahead.
If Stanton comes back, I mean, it seems more and more each week that the reporting is he's getting pushed back, and he hasn't even started baseball activities in Florida at this point. Like, it is seeming like it is a real, but then again, you're 18-12 without him, and also the pitching staff outside of Max Fried hasn't been great. So, like, yeah, things definitely looking up for the Yankees. And oh, by the way, like I said, you're in a division that I think is a lot easier than any of us thought it was going to be going into the season, because the Orioles are terrible.
Yeah, they are.
That team is horrible.
So are the Blue Jays. By the way, Rodon's 4-3, 3.43 ERA. It's hardly chopped liver. Yankees are going to be fine. I mean, they're still going to win that division, I think. Let's talk about Bill Belichick. Yeah, I know. We're coming back. Welcome back to the show on this Wednesday. Coming up in 10 minutes, odds and ends. Time to pay the piper if you're the Atlanta Falcons. You don't know what we're talking about? You'll find out in a few minutes. So Sam brought this to my attention yesterday after we had already put the show to bed, the Tuesday show. What? Why are you giving me this face? You brought this to my attention. What's wrong?
Yeah, that's shocking. I can't believe you didn't watch Never mind.
No, first of all, a couple of things here. One, CBS Sunday Morning, which I have watched since I was a little kid, is one of the most underrated shows in all of television, hands down. It's hosted by Jane Pauley now. I'm trying to remember who hosted it before. It was a guy.
Oh my gosh.
Osgood.
Yes. Yeah. I'll see you on the radio.
Yes, I'll see you on the radio. Had amazing pipes. Anyway, one of the most underrated shows, long form content, which is very hard to find in news these days. Let it breathe a little bit, and you get some things you don't typically get in your news. They had an interview with Bill Belichick for CBS Sunday Morning, and let's just say it was a little bizarre. It was a little peculiar, with Belichick appearing on camera and his girlfriend, Jordan Hudson, sitting off camera. When a question was asked by the interviewer, by the way, Belichick showing up to the interview in a Navy sweatshirt, as in the institution Navy, with a giant rip in it. I'm like, what rock concert are you going to? Like, are you going to a Billy Idol concert? Like, what is going on? But wait. There's a question asked of Belichick during the interview about how he met Jordan Hudson. And from off the set, you hear her say, "We're not talking about that." Okay, fine. It certainly made for an awkward moment, and a lot of people sort of questioning the dynamics of their relationship, which I think a lot of people were questioning to begin with, because we've seen Belichick and Hudson in sort of these awkward, non-Belichick-like situations over the last several months, Sam. So I ask you, I'll give you my take in a second, but because I know you were passionate about this. You really wanted to talk about it. Tell me what you think is going on here.
Well, so there's a little more context that needs to be added here.
Sure.
This interview they were doing with CBS 60 Minutes is part of this book tour that Belichick is going on. Because right now, for the first time seemingly ever, he now wants to tell everybody about what it takes to be the greatest head coach of all time. So he is going on this book tour and this press tour. He shows up to this 60 Minutes interview, the CBS Sunday Morning interview, not a 60 Minutes interview. Like Jason said,
right.
CBS Sunday Morning, a show I grew up watching with my father every Sunday morning. Like, it is a family show.
It's a fixture.
No sort of like no sort of tension or like gotcha questions.
Right.
None of that. That's not what they're there to do. So he shows up to do this book interview as part of it, right? Nobody shows up with him. Those of you who work in media, work in public relations, understand that when you have a sort of get together like this, not only do you have obviously the subject, Bill Belichick, you also would have a PR representative from probably Bill Belichick's personal team.
Yeah.
You would have a PR representative from the publishing company. You would have a PR representative who's hired externally to just run the book tour. There are like at least 3 people whose job it is essentially to tell Bill Belichick what to say to the camera. He showed up with Jordan. That's it. Nobody else. He showed up to this interview with Jordan. That's all.
Yep.
Tuesday or maybe Monday, early this week, after the interview airs, Jordan goes on Instagram, posts a screenshot of an email from April 10th that's allegedly written by Bill Belichick, stating all these different things about the book tour. If you go and find it and read it, I promise you'll read it and your first thought will be, there's no chance that Bill Belichick actually wrote that. That's what I thought when I first read it. Jordan posts that on Instagram. Then people realize she posts with the caption, full statement coming later. It's a 19-day-old email. Everyone is so confused by what's going on at this point. And to me, it has become very clear and obvious. I think that Bill Belichick has found himself in a very similar situation to what Britney Spears found herself in all those years ago. It feels like this has become somewhat of a conservatorship.
Oh, no,
It feels like this Jordan woman has full control over what Bill Belichick is doing. And quite frankly, I watched the full 8-minute piece, and that's not the Bill Belichick that you and I knew for 20 plus years in the NFL. It's a different human being. And Jason, I think he needs help.
No, I don't come away with that. I might come away with the idea that he's whipped. That I might come away. No. I might come away with the idea that he's whipped from the interview. I mean, look, 70-something-year-old, beautiful 20-somethings. Forget, that whether she has daddy issues or granddaddy issues or any of that stuff. Can I say this? My take is the absolute opposite of yours, and that's why I'm fascinated by this. Here's my take: as long as nobody's getting hurt, and it isn't a Britney Spears situation, which I don't think it is. He's got a son who's clearly involved in his life, who I think that would step in if that sort of situation was going on, who's part of his coaching staff. Here's my take, honestly. Leave him alone. Let him live his life. And I know that may not be the popular take, but to me, the guy's happy. He's got this beautiful young muse, whatever. Let him live his life. Nobody's getting hurt here. Just what I'm thinking. If the situation changes, I feel I reserve the right to change my mind. Odds and ends are
blink twice
next.
if you need help.
All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday, and that means David Ardsma likely to be here. Our MLB guy, former MLB reliever. Be curious to get his thoughts on a number of items from around baseball. If you have not done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. That version of the show, audio, available every day. This very same show in a nice, tidy audio package, available Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to this show. You can also watch us on Spotify every day. The show goes up there early in the afternoon. Make sure to go and check that out. Also, watch the show over on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Clips from the show, Sports Wrap shorts. We get sometimes news breaks outside of the windows where we're doing the show. and we put up SportsWrap shorts. Make sure to go and check that out as well. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. Well, we wondered, Sam Yarnell, what kind of punishment the NFL might hand out on the Jeff Ulbrich situation with his son prank calling Shedeur Sanders during the NFL draft. And apparently punishment has come from the league.
Yes, and the Deion Sanders PR masterclass around his son continues all the way to a fine for the Atlanta Falcons and Jeff Ulbrich himself.
How much?
So the Atlanta Falcons are being fined $250,000, which to the organization doesn't feel like a lot. Jeff Ulbrich is being fined $100,000.
Wow.
$100,000 against a coach for the technical term they used is failing to prevent the disclosure. I mean, that's a lot of negatives working on each other. Failing to prevent the disclosure of confidential information surrounding the NFL draft.
Okay.
Wow.
Disown your son.
Yeah. I would like to see the person who prank called Cooper DeJean prosecuted to the same level. I would like to see the person who prank called Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren.
Okay.
This I would like to see the person who prank called Ashton
All right.
Genty.
But here's the thing. They didn't come from within the NFL. They didn't come from within a team. And that's the difference here. It's because this comes from an NFL team and the disclosure was within an NFL team. That's the only reason I think it's happening this way. I know we all like to think this is happening because it's Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders and all this, but ultimately it's because Jeff Ulbrich didn't protect the information that was on his iPad. I think the whole thing, I think punishing him is kind of silly. I think the embarrassment for the organization, I think the embarrassment for Jeff Ulbrich, for his son, is quite enough. But the NFL probably felt like it had to do something because it was from within their own league ranks that this took place. Real quick.
I will just say that anytime this happens, it has to come from an organization. Like literally based in the writing of why they fined the Falcons. It is confidential information disclosed solely to the clubs. Like whenever this happens, there is a club somewhere, there's an employee of some team that is letting this information get out. But just because this guy's a defensive coordinator and Shedeur's draft stock tanked this year, we're going to go after Jeff Ulbrich.
Yeah, phone numbers leak everywhere, though. Phone numbers could be leaked from anywhere. I don't think that, it would just have to necessarily come from a team. All right, real quick, because I know you wanted to weigh in on what we talked about at the top of the show with Kurt. I wanted to give you just a minute here. Tyrese Halliburton's father, John Halliburton, confronting Giannis Antetokounmpo after his team just got eliminated from the postseason. Giannis showed way more restraint than I would have.
Yeah, good for Giannis. I mean, this was by far the wildest moment of Tuesday night, Jason. This credit to Tyrese Halliburton. He handled it like a freaking pro in the media session afterwards. From what I understand, the Halliburton family has gotten very comfortable in Indianapolis with the Pacers' recent success and with their son's recent stardom. I think that the NBA is going to have to find a line somewhere. Like, we can't be allowing parents of players on the floor seconds after the game ends when, like, before the other team's even off the floor. Like, what are we doing here, NBA? It was just a very confusing moment to me, Jason. And, again, credit to Giannis for being as professional as he was. Credit to Tyrese Halliburton for immediately coming out and saying, what my pops did was not okay.
Not cool.
Just a weird moment last night in Indiana.
By the way, same thing happened, I think it was last year with John Morant and Shannon Sharp. John Morant's dad and Shannon Sharp. We had a similar sort of situation where they were both down near the court and got in each other's faces. Parents being parents, sports parents being sports. I get it. Look, I get it.
But is it? See, I heard someone say that, and then I thought, and this is selfish, right, and a little self-centered. But like, I thought about myself and my parents. Not to say that I was ever anywhere in the same stratosphere, atmosphere, universe as Tyrese Halliburton is at playing basketball. But I know my parents would never do that. That's not a normal parent thing to do.
No. My dad used to come to my baseball games when I was a kid. Never said a single word. He'd sit on the fence, and I usually was pitching. And the only thing my dad would do during an entire game was, if I pitched like garbage, I'd come off, he'd do this. If I pitched well, he'd do this. That was the only thing I ever got from my dad. We got to go. Love you, Dad. Kurt Helin, appreciate you coming on. We'll see you all tomorrow on the show.